Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Salt Lake City Council meeting. As always, we begin our council meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We would like to welcome you all to our City Council meeting. We appreciate so much you taking the time out of your day to join us here and to share your thoughts with us. We just have a couple of reminders as you participate with us in this meeting tonight. And should you make public comments, please be respectful during other people's comments and avoid cheering or jeering. We want everyone to feel comfortable and welcome in this space, and it's really important for us that all people are heard. Please help us take care of this very historic building. That means no spitwads on Brigham, and please don't stand on the furniture or dig holes in the carpet. If you have a sign or a prop, I don't see anything tonight, so I'll just say quickly, keep them from blocking other people's view. And please do not approach the dais. You can come to the podium to speak. If you have items you'd like to hand out to council members, one of our staff members, raise your hands. Where are our staff members? Oh, there's one. They will be happy, and there'll be another one over here. They'll be happy to assist you with distributing materials. We realize that 2 minutes, if you're speaking, it goes by really fast, and it's not always enough time to accommodate all your thoughts. You are more than welcome to communicate with us through other means. If you visit slccouncil.com, you can find contact information for all of your council members. You can see other opportunities for how to participate and provide feedback to the city. We appreciate and share all of that comment. Our first item on our agenda, it's actually our third item on our agenda, is consideration of a joint resolution this evening. Tonight we'll be supporting with the mayor a resolution to support legislation to enhance penalties for targeted offenses, otherwise known as hate crimes. It is an effort on our part to support many other municipalities in the state of Utah who've identified that our hate crimes legislation at a state level is not sufficient to really enforce the severity of the concerns we're having to address at a state level. This resolution will support the call to action of our state legislature to support these municipalities. We need help from the state. I'm going to ask Councilmember Derek Kitchen to read the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joint resolution supporting legislation to enhance penalties for targeted offenses. Whereas the United States of America's Declaration of Independence states that governments are instituted to secure mankind's unalienable rights, and whereas in 2017 alone, Christian monuments were destroyed, Muslim mosques burned, and bomb threats made against Jewish schools, synagogues, and community centers, including right here in Utah. And whereas when a criminal deliberately targets a victim because of ancestry, disability, ethnicity, sex, gender identity, national origin, race, religion, or sexual orientation to deprive them of their unalienable right to life, liberty, property, or to pursue happiness, other members of that community are deeply affected, as is society as a whole. And whereas stronger tools to address crime in which the offender targets victims can assist law enforcement in building better relations and trust with communities, and more appropriately punish the people who commit these vicious acts. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City join with the Utah Attorney General, Salt Lake County District Attorney, the Statewide Association of Prosecutors, the Utah Chiefs of Police Association, the Utah Sheriff's Association, the Commission on Criminal and Juvenile Justice, the Utah Sentencing Commission, the Utah Council on Victims of Crime, the Law Enforcement Legislative Committee, and many other religious and community groups in calling on the Utah State Legislature to pass legislation enhancing penalties for crimes targeting victims based on their ancestry, disability, ethnicity, sex, gender identity, national origin, race, religion, or sexual orientation. Be it further resolved that a signed copy of this resolution will be sent to all members of the Utah State Legislature representing constituents residing within Salt Lake City.
Thank you, Councilmember Kitchen. Are you prepared with a motion to adopt?
I move that the Salt Lake City Council adopt this joint resolution.
There's a motion by Councilmember Kitchen and a second by Councilmember Luke to adopt the resolution. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and it is unanimous. I'd like to thank the mayor on behalf of the council for joining in this resolution. And I'd also like to invite Troy Williams, who is the Executive Director of Equality Utah, to join us right down here in front. And council members, if you would all join us for a quick photo op and the presentation of the resolution.
Side? Get out of this side would be nice. Okay.
Can we do one looking over here real quick? 1, 2, 3. Look at all your good angles. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
I need one more. Hang on.
Thank you all very much for that incredible opportunity. We are now to Section B on our agenda. It's a public hearing section. I'll remind you of the recommendations we made earlier about comments. You will have 2 minutes to comment if you choose to address this. Our first public hearing is an ordinance concerning a budget amendment number 2, redevelopment agency budget amendment number 3 for fiscal year 2017-18. Do we have any comment cards on this public hearing? Doesn't look like we do. Is there anyone here to address the council regarding the budget amendment number 2 and RDA budget amendment number 3?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion then.
Councilmember Adams, please.
I would move that the board close the public hearing and suspend the rules.
Second.
There's a motion to close the public hearing and suspend the rules.
And further move to adopt the council approve amending the FY 2017-18 budget to allow for, and should I read the whole thing?
I think so, yes.
Okay, great. A, $2 million toward the general purposes of the Housing Trust Fund to be administered by hand, and B, $1 million towards a new renovation pilot program aimed at providing renovation funds to improve existing affordable housing units in the city in exchange for a guaranteed period of continued affordability.
And since we didn't vote on the first part of that, Councilmember Adams, are you okay if I combine those as one motion?
Yes.
And
should I keep
Council
reading?
Member Rogers, are you okay with a second?
Well, since it is Councilmember Adams' second to last meeting, I say yes.
Okay.
Okay, so there is a motion to close the hearing, suspend the rules, and to adopt. Any discussion to that motion?
There's still more to read.
Oh, you want to go, yes,
Well,
we do
that's-
need to go
that's
through
what
the
I
whole
was
thing.
asking, as proposed then.
As
So
proposed.
I think we're okay reading the modifications to the original proposal. Are we good, Margaret? We're good, okay.
All right, now discussion.
Any comments, discussion to the motion? I would just like to once again thank the leadership of the RDA, Chair and Vice Chair, and the Council and RDA staff for making a recommendation that I think is found a way through a very challenging series of briefings, and I'm really pleased with where we ended up. So thank you to Derek and Lisa for guiding us through this process. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries with the absence of Derek Kitchen. The second public hearing we have is a grant application for Salt Lake City Consumer Protection Program.
Mr. Chair, I move the council close the public hearing and refer the...
Before, can I at least, let me
Oh,
just make sure
public
that,
comment. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I think Councilmember Rogers has
Yeah, I'm ready.
must have a pressing engagement to get out of here.
It is
Are there any,
7:15.
is anyone here to speak to this public hearing, a grant application concerning an grant application for the Salt Lake City Consumer Protection Program? Seeing none.
All right, Mr. Chair, I move the council close the public hearing and refer this grant item to a future meeting for action.
Second.
There's a motion by an eager motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Mendenhall to close the public, Adams, to close the public hearing and defer to a future meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. We are now on to Section C of our agenda, which is potential actions. Our first consideration is an ordinance concerning Budget Amendment Number 1 for fiscal year 2017-2018.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Councilmember Mendenhall.
I move that the council adopt an ordinance amending the final budget of Salt Lake City, including the employment staffing document for fiscal year 2017-18 as proposed by the administration with the changes that I will read below. Item A7, which is Pioneer Park Improvements Implementation Rescope using $544,000 of CIP funds, along with up to $300,000 in financial contributions from the Pioneer Park Coalition. Item A12, which was the Operation Rio Grande, using $2,169,200 from the fund balance, in addition to the administration's proposal for one, adding 50 new police officers or FTEs, purchasing 50 vehicles and other equipment. 2, quarter-year funding for 5 civilian positions as follows, which is 1 quality assurance manager, 3 crime lab technicians, and 1 victim advocate. And allowing 4 civilian positions to the staffing document without funding this fiscal year as follows: 2 crime intelligence analysts and 2 records clerks. Also, item I4, which is a study of potential safety improvements along 600 North from 800 West to Redwood Road, using $50,000 from fiscal year 2018 Transportation Division vacancy savings.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mendenhall and a second by Councilmember Luke. Any discussion to the motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to say that my 12-year-old is having his 7th grade holiday concert tonight. I told him that I wasn't going to be able to make it because I really wanted to be here to vote for this budget amendment. He told me that he totally understands and that we need to go get more cops. So with that, I'm very much supportive of this motion. I want to thank my colleagues for helping to move this forward.
Thank you. Any additional discussion to this motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you know, an item I-4, it might not seem, you know, that substantial to most, but this is something that the Rose Park community has needed. We've invested the traffic calming measures there, and this is just another opportunity for us to create a walkable, livable environment for our neighborhood. So thank you.
Additional comments or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries and it's unanimous. Second item under potential action is an ordinance concerning rezone and master plan amendment at 416 East, 500 South.
Mr. Chair, I move the council adopt an ordinance amending the Central Community Master Plan to high mixed use and rezone the parcel to RMU for the parcel located at 416 East, 500 South.
Is there a second to that motion? There is a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Luke. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries and it is unanimous. Our third item is an ordinance concerning Northwest Quadrant rezonings.
I move the council adopt the ordinance.
Second?
So we have a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Luke to adopt the ordinance. Any discussion to that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. It's unanimous. Fourth item is ordinance for a text amendment to the FBUN2 zoning district. Do we have a motion concerning this ordinance?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilmember Rogers and a second by Councilmember Kitchen to adopt the ordinance. Any discussion to that motion? Any questions about that motion? Are you ready to vote on that motion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think it would be helpful to outline just briefly what changes were made so the public knows that from.
Nick, could I get you to come up to the podium after you grab your notes?
Sorry, Nick.
Which is what that motion was that he was doing there. That was, I'm going to go get my notes motion. After 8 years, I've learned to read the staff.
All right, sorry about that. This was the discussion. I'll just go through them quickly. On the ground floor use, the original ordinance required the first 25 feet to be an active use. For the multifamily, the townhome uses, now it will be 10 feet. Excuse me. The second item the council supported was on the townhome restrictions. It used to be, it was a minimum of 3, maximum of 5. Now it's just simply the 200 linear feet. We'll break that up. There was a request for additional height if there are setbacks and stepbacks included. The council did not support that change. And then the final one was the commercial parking lots that the council did not support.
Nick, can I ask you a question on that? And you might not have this in your notes, but my recollection of the 3 to 5 maximum was that we didn't go with, that we decided to keep that maximum in there after some discussion, but
The straw polls showed that the council supported eliminating that in favor of the
200
design
foot.
guidelines for 200 feet.
because there was breakup along the
Yeah.
facade.
That's
that
because
we- thank
there's
you. That
already a
was kind of
requirement
longer
for breaking up
discussion.
a facade in that length. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking. the
Any other
time to do that.
questions for Nick while we have him here? Thank you, Nick. Any other discussion to the motion? There is a motion to approve on the table. Any discussion?
I think, I'd like to say something, Mr. Chair. I really like form-based. I think that we are going to continue to have to iron out issues in this code as we continue to roll it out citywide. It's expressing itself very nicely in our West Temple Gateway project area or Central 9th. And I just want to appreciate, if I'm not mistaken, it was Cindy Cromer that initially brought up some major concerns with regard to the Sugar House iteration of form-based. And so I want to appreciate the community that are always keeping their eyes on our zoning codes and helping us see issues where they arise. So, you know, I think that this is not perfect, but I do support this updated design standards, and I'm excited to support it today.
Thank you. Any other discussion to the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries, and it is unanimous. We are on to item number 5, which is a resolution adjusting the mosquito abatement boundaries.
Mr. Chair, I move the council adopt a resolution approving the boundary adjustment.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilmember Adams and a second by Councilmember Kitchen to adopt the ordinance, resolution, I'm sorry. Any discussion to that motion? I was expecting lots of,
Buzz?
buzz about this one. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries and it's
I opposed
unanimous.
the joke.
Object to the joke. Okay. We have tabled item number 6. It is on our agenda for next week for consideration. And after a lengthy discussion in our briefing session today and the realization that after 7 briefings, we were still not all on the same page about accessory dwelling units, we have asked the planning department to review the discussion and the concerns that were raised as part of our 7 briefings and our public comment, and they have committed to return a revised ordinance to the council in a March-April timeline. So that will not be on our agenda until a future date. We are now on to comments section of the agenda, section D. Welcome, David and Patrick. We appreciate you representing the mayor. I understand she's out of town at a conference today. Any questions to the mayor's staff? Yes. Councilmember Mendenhall and then Councilmember Rogers.
Will the mayor be able to join us for our last meeting next week?
She'll be here.
Councilmember Rogers.
I'm not specifically asking for her itinerary, but is she going to be back tomorrow for the Rose Park Community Council? I know that.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you both. Yes, Dave.
Council Chair, I
I mean,
hope.
Patrick. Yes, Patrick.
Looked like
I know
David.
that you suggest you're interchangeable, but you are not. So, Patrick.
Well, I hope that the council is planning to join the city staff tomorrow for the annual holiday luncheon at the Fair Park. So 11 to 3, if you can stop by, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that invitation. We are now on to section D2, which is comments to the city council. This is an opportunity for the public to share their comments with us. The same rules apply as a public hearing. You have 2 minutes to express your views. You'll be notified when that 2 minutes has expired. I have a couple of cards. If you are interested in speaking and you haven't filled out a card, please fill out a yellow card and hand it to our staff member. Douglas Cotant, followed by Michael Fife.
Good evening, members of the City Council, and good evening, Lisa. Now on to serious business. I am still concerned about our manager because he refuses to put a rail on the second floor nearest the wall, because I'm right-handed, and I talked to some of my church people, like my LDS home teacher, and he suggested that I call the building inspector, which I did, and the building inspector came, and we talked about it, and then we had and then we went to my apartment and talked, and apparently we're not sure if the building meets proper code or what. But anyway, as of this moment, the manager hasn't said anything, but I'm waiting for the for the building inspector to contact me again, and we're gonna see what we can do. And I also had my birthday this past Sunday, and I turned 70 years old, or 70 years old. And I enjoy coming to these council meetings, and when you leave, Lisa, I will miss you.
Time.
You timed that perfectly, Douglas, and on behalf of the council, I'd like to extend you a belated happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank
And,
you.
Mr. Chair, point of
Yes.
personal privilege.
Yes, Lisa.
Douglas has been talking to us about this problem with the railing in his building for, I think, 4 weeks. It's been a while. Is there anything we can do to find out what's going on? I can't read your lips, sorry.
Looks like Nick and Sam are both on the edge of their seats.
Okay,
Okay.
they're working on it,
We're
Douglas.
working on it.
Thank you.
Two guys. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Douglas. Michael Fife, followed by Sim Gill.
Good evening. Last week, the council announced, and today you voted, that instead of the 27 police officers that Chief Brown had requested, the council decided that Salt Lake City needed 50 new police officers. And of course, like 14 additional people of staff and prosecutors and whatnot. The council admitted they had no money to pay for doubling the number of officers requested by Chief Brown, but that was okay because you could just raise taxes to pay for those additional officers. I had previously listened to Chief Brown discuss the methodology for coming up with the hiring numbers, and although it seemed like a heavy lift, Salt Lake City is growing and we do need new police officers, and it was supported by facts. The council's announcement seemed to assume that Salt Lake City taxpayers would welcome this unfunded increase in police officers. I just wanted to let you know that at least one constituent is not on board with the extra increase in the additional police officers. I don't appreciate this being sprung on us at the last minute. I don't appreciate the lack of rigor in determining the number. I don't appreciate the lack of coordination with the administration and the police department in coming up with this number, although I do understand that some of that happened this week retroactively, and I don't appreciate the assumption that it's no big deal to raise taxes on the taxpayers in Salt Lake City. I know that the police chief said that this is a gift from the city council, but it's not a gift. All the money that the city council spends comes from the taxpayers of Salt Lake City and the ratepayers and the fee payers. And so I know you voted for this, but there's still time to rethink it next year. And we're growing, we need more police officers, but let's not get ahead of the budget and let's spend the money that we actually have. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Sim Gill, followed by Jerry Schmidt. And Jerry's is the last card I have, so if you would like to speak to us, please raise your hand and have a staff member help you.
Good
Welcome,
evening.
Sam.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a second as a private citizen, a resident of Salt Lake City, to come and personally thank the council on your resolution, and also in the capacity as your city prosecutor and as your district attorney to thank you as well. I wanted to make the position that you took today, I think, sends a very strong and important message to our legislature that at the grassroots level, the hate crime issues and targeting issues are of importance to us. And the kind of dignity that everybody deserves and the respect that everybody deserves and the kind of ideals that we have are important values. So thank you for coming together as my council, and I'm a proud resident of Salt Lake City to tell you personally, it was important to come and say thank you for representing all of us and sending that message. And as a prosecutor, I also want to tell you that this is something, legislation, that's meant a lot to me. I've been a prosecutor for over 23 years, and I want to point out that the first legislative effort was in 1992, and David Litvak in 2006 also worked on this issue, and we're here 25 years later. And as a public prosecutor, I cannot name a single crime on a hate crime violation that we have successfully prosecuted because we do not have the means or the tools available for the transgressions that occur in our community. And so your message hopefully will, again, communicate to our legislature that this is an ongoing concern and it is something that we need to take care of. The latest reports from the FBI indicated that hate crimes across the country are up on a rise. And in Utah alone, there's a 40% increase from 66 reported, up to 66 from 47 from last year. But let me put a caveat with that. The FBI statistics are voluntary. So when we say that there's a national trend and a trend in Utah, that's really based on poor evidence. And the real numbers of the harm that's occurring is far greater than that. So I just wanted to take a second, and it was important for me to come and share that with you as a resident, to thank my council for your leadership, your voice, and what it
Time.
means to all citizens in our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. Jerry Schmidt, and Jerry's is the last card I have, so if anyone else would like to speak, please raise your hand.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Also, great thanks to all of our World War II veterans who saved our democracy for us. I once went to a clean air hearing and had to speak after Dr. Brian Munch, head of Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment. Now I come to the council and I have to follow the Honorable Sim Gill. Thanks a lot.
Your timing is not great, is that what
No.
you're suggesting?
Anyway, I just wanted to thank you all for your service, and I want to thank Councilwoman Adams for her service to our district in 7 there. And I know I years ago looked at becoming a council member, and I thought, wait a minute, all that work for that much money? Are you kidding? So I know what you folks do and the sacrifices you make and the time sacrifices you make, so thank you very much for your service. I came tonight and actually canceled another engagement so I could come and speak about the ADU. And although I'm happy that it's not going through yet, at the same time, I'm a little bit frustrated by the process with this thing. I actually contacted Councilwoman Adams back in August, I believe it was, August or July, and we chatted, and it was going to the Planning Commission, and it was going to come back, and blah, blah, blah. And then a couple of weeks ago, I actually was in contact with a city one of the city workers, and they were saying how it had fallen through and wasn't going to be an issue. And then all of a sudden I read the paper the other day and it's back on the thing and it's going to be heard tonight. And I'm like, my goodness, I just feel frustrated as a citizen trying to keep up with this thing. I feel like I'm a little bit of, it's a pinball type of thing. So I guess I'll just have to mark my calendar for March and April or so and come back then. But at the same time, while I'm here, I just, I wanted to suggest that I'm not really in favor of this ADU situation. I live in Sugar House above Greystone condos, and we had in our neighborhood at one time a 4-bedroom home that was rented by college students, parties every weekend, people staying over, and cars all over the neighborhood. Across the street from me, I have an illegal duplex that with 3
Time.
cars on the street every night, and I think there are effects that you really need to take into account, and cars not just being one of them, but it does create conflicts in the neighborhood. And
Jerry.
I just wish that we could hang on to a R1 zoning and make it a true R1 zoning.
Thank you for your comments. The good news is that the reason we have taken the action that we did earlier today was because we heard comments from lots of residents, including comments like yours, and we are looking at some options that we think create a much better opportunity for this ordinance. So
great.
if you'll look over there at Nick Tarbett, who's going to raise his hand, and if you leave him your contact information, he'd be happy to inform you when this comes before the council.
Okay. And thank you for your service as well,
Thank
Councilman
you.
Penfold.
Thank you very much. And you're welcome to speak regardless of who you follow, anytime here at the council. We are now to Section E, New Business. We have a couple of legislative intents. The first is a legislative intent to review maximum allowable height of walls allowed through special exception process in the Foothills zoning district. And as clarification, the intent of this particular legislative intent is to review and consider including a maximum height for retaining walls to minimize the impact to adjacent properties and the undeveloped areas of the Foothills zoning districts. It is not meant to consider increasing allowable wall height. I'd
Mr.
consider a motion.
I move that the council adopt a legislative action initiating a review of the maximum allowable height of walls allowed through the special exception process in the Foothill zoning district.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mendenhall and a second by Councilmember Johnston. Any discussion to the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Our second item is legislative intent to review the process of initiating an alley closure.
Mr. Chair, I move the council adopt a legislative action initiating a review of the city's zoning ordinance pertaining to the process to dispose of city-owned alleys specifically the requirement to obtain no less than 80% of the neighbors owning property which abut the alley.
There's a motion by Councilmember Adams and a second by Councilmember Luke to adopt the legislative intent. Any discussion to the motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
The reason I brought this forward is that we have discovered that this becomes a mathematical impossibility in some situations. And so we're looking to have something that is easier, like linear feet that abut or something like that, so that you can't have one property owner hold the rest hostage, because if you can't do 80%, it has to be 100%. So we discovered that that was a problem with this ordinance, so we want to have it be something that can be applied more readily.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams. I also like to suggest a reminder that the council staff is currently screening applications for alley closures through some criteria that the council has set a while back, awaiting further discussion of alley closures throughout the city. Any other discussion to this motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries, and it is unanimous. We are on to item number F, unfinished business. It's an ordinance concerning a transit master plan.
I'd be happy to.
Councilmember Mendenhall.
I move that council adopt an ordinance to adopt the Salt Lake City Transit Master Plan with the revisions shown in the revised draft dated December 4th, 2017, with the following amendment, that on page 310 in the revised plan section titled Transit Master Plan Priority Corridors for Capital Investments, the sentence that reads, quote, while the Transit Master Plan is generally mode neutral, an interest in what streetcar network would look like was one motivating factor for the City Council in funding this plan, end quote, be omitted from the plan's final version.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mendenhall and a louder second by Councilmember Johnston. So that's what I'll go with. Any discussion to the motion?
Holy cow.
Holy cow. You care to elaborate?
I will elaborate a tiny bit to say, I know that Lisa worked on this as a planning commission member when I was campaigning over 4 years ago. This was my big thing I wanted to see to fruition. I know we've all been working on this for so long, but Transportation Department, holy cow, this is a big deal for Salt Lake City to have a transit master plan. Here we come, bus service, frequent rider networks. Let's get this done and let's figure out some funding to make this thing happen.
Thank you, Councilmember Mendenhall. Any other discussion of the motion? Councilmember Kitchen?
Well, I would just like to echo Councilmember Mendenhall's call for this body to find a way to fund either in full or incrementally the transit master plan, because it's great on paper, but we got to put some resources behind it. But yeah, I'm really proud to pass this today.
Thank you. Any other discussion of the motion? If I may just take a moment of privilege and say, I remember working on this probably 6 years ago when we were trying to put together the funding for it, and persuaded UTA to be a 50-50 partner with us. And at the time, it was a very radical idea because no one had ever done anything like this. And so I'm thrilled to see this completed. And I look forward to watching our future council look for innovative ways to expand transit throughout Salt Lake City, because clearly through this process, what we heard is that our residents really want access to transit, and they will use it if it's there. So I think this is a great moment as well.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Councilmember Luke.
Since we're all jumping in, I also just want to say this has been a project that has been a long, long time coming. The genesis, really started moving, well, the genesis was earlier, but it started moving quickly during the Sugar House debate as to where the extension of the streetcar should go. And at the time, we council members, I think Stan, you and I are pretty much the only ones remaining who were there debating at the time, and we felt that it was imperative that Salt Lake City has a transit master plan so that we don't end up having a similar debate where we are trying to make decisions as to where something should go based on funding. That we wanted to see a plan, we wanted to see a framework. That's what we have with this. I want to thank Transportation for their work on this. I want to thank UTA as well, and all of us, because there's been a lot of work going into this, so thank you all.
Thank you, Councilmember Luke. Any other discussion to this motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries, and it is unanimous. Our last item on our agenda is item G, which is our consent agenda. I look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
There's a motion by Councilmember Kitchen and a second by Councilmember Mendenhall to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. It's unanimous. That concludes our business for the day. We are adjourned. That was a lot of stuff.